Hello. Hello, mates. I apologize about the late start here. My fucking truck battery died, so I left my lights on like a retard. I had to run and get all my shit. I'm not even prepared. I don't want to give you guys too much. I don't want to give you too much, right? That's what we're working on. I figured I would give you some of that since we have such a late start here. Fuck, where's my other fucking phone? There it is. Okay. You caught a live stream. Congratulations. Hello, Letter Bomb. That's an ominous name you've got. I know. I gotta shoot the music video for it. The music video will actually be easier than the music. The music always takes a long time. Like, it's hard. It's not hard to do. It's hard to do it timely. It's easy to do, but it takes a long time. Okay, so man, we got 53 people in here. Holy shit. Okay. So we got a shitload of people in here starting out. That's cool. I can't believe that people actually even watch these videos, but I think it's awesome. Okay. So I sent some files to Abdullah. They're like the topics that we're going to discuss basically. And I apologize, I didn't get a chance to fucking bring this shit up. What is it? NIRC? .io? No. .io. Contagion Network. I gotta pull it up so I can reference it. Oh, I guess first we should start. What's going? Anything? Did the Boog start? Is anything going on in the news or anything, or what? It didn't we're not at war with China yet, are we? Did somebody said in an earlier stream, Baltimore? Okay, give me Baltimore ATF. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, that's in there. Yeah. Is it? Yeah, it probably is to me, honestly, which is hilarious. We're gonna pull up the doc. We're gonna take a look at it. ATF can just come in here. We can literally have a live stream with ATF if they want. They probably don't want that because, you know. Okay, so I guess maybe we should start about that first, right? That would make sense, right? Since we're already talking about that. Okay, so we got 2 readings, right? Chevy McGee. What was that? Is that an ERPO incident? Chevy McGee. Yeah, no, I got you, Drew. You're good. You don't even have to make corrections. I'll just read in. I'll just let the beer sit on my brain and read into whatever the word looks like. I'll probably misread whatever you write anyway. It's fine. You don't have to correct yourself. You're reg around here. Okay, let's pull up this. So the first file that we're looking at is this ATF. And Abdullah should have the docs on the Discord if you guys are going to the Discord. By the way, we're tomorrow night at the same time. I'm gonna link up with Bacone. We're gonna talk. We are going to have fun. That's gonna be on Discord, so there's a gentleman that's volunteered to record it for me, which I appreciate very much. And I need to follow up with him to set the time. But if you're watching this, it's gonna be tomorrow at 9 p.m. Central. Oh, are you serious? Do I not have that in here? Oh, I'm an idiot. Okay, let me double check before I do this. Okay, I gotta minimize out of the screen so I can read the fucking text. I don't have this fucking phone. I'm an idiot. I'm sorry. This is like the biggest problem with all this shit is that I can't even. Yeah, hang on. Okay. All right. I just sent the file. I switched over to come into this other phone. I'm back. I'm sorry. I'm all ate up. I'm ate up like a bag of dicks today. Okay. I'm sorry. Sometimes these streams are smooth and sometimes they're not so smooth, right? You can't always win. Okay. So we are talking about if I can get this motherfucker to come in. I'm waiting. So basically there's an ATF internal memo, restricted internal memo, like notifying about the Boogaloo. It's pretty non-specific, right? If you read it, it's pretty non-specific, so I don't think it's like a huge. Oh, here we go. Okay, here we go. Here's the money shot. Okay. Can we see it? Can we take a look right at it? Por favor. Somehow I can't see this. What the hell is this? I'm gonna try to view details. No, that's not gonna work. Ah, okay. So I can't see the motherfucker. Yeah. I don't think it's not a. It's not like, it's more like a notification. It's like a notification. It says something about, I can't pull up the motherfucking documents, so I can't see it, but it basically says that there's a, the format's all fucked up. That's what's going on. It basically says that the ATF has, become aware that, in officialdom of what they call the Boogaloo movement, which is not a movement. It's pretty much just like a bunch of people apparently like on phones while one guy sits in a car and other people like type on the internet, and that's pretty much it. But there's apparently a Boogaloo movement, and they notified ATF about it, and they said that they let them know that these people are extremely armed and dangerous. They're extremely armed and dangerous, and that they claim that they want to harm law enforcement. That's what they claim about this movement. Now I recognize some of the language in here. I recognize from this earlier thing. This is not the first run-in. The first run-in would have been, if I can find it. The first run-in would have been with Contagion Network, which would have been at the beginning of this year after Yankee Boogle release, right? So if you go to ncri.io, that's Contagion Network Research Institute, And you're gonna get like a fancy fucking rollout page here for the landing page. And it has some stuff about deception and manipulation and hate. I've actually been on there. Let's see. I haven't been on there. The Yankee Boogle has been on there. They didn't tackle Duke and Ashley. I don't know if they want to do that. If you're watching this and if you're from Contagion Network, I'd like to interview you. I probably have to use Discord. I don't know if that's like too racist for you, but I'd like to interview you if you'd be willing. We'd like to have a little talk. But so I'm going into Contagion Network. Let's look at the about NCRI. Below that, you've got the media room. Now, they actually had two really good articles in here. One of them, I can't get it on the phone. When I click on this thing, it says not found. When I was looking on a PC, I could read it fine. But they have an article called Weaponized Information Outbreak, a case study on COVID-19, bioweapon myths, and the Asian conspiracy meme. Now, I don't know what you think, right? That sounds an awful lot like me. Like, are you guys fucking in this stream right now? Is that what's going on? Are you guys just like watching this stream and then getting fed money to like make a fucking institute and talk about this shit or what? Although they don't really like, it's kind of ridiculous because this would have been from 4/8/20, and here's a little synopsis. Is paranoia now rises around COVID-19. Several major challenges prevent the protection of these vulnerable outgroups from ethnic hate, especially on social media. Objectively identifying which groups attract hostility in a timely fashion, catalog cryptic, hateful language, and specific conspiracies as they evolve, and determining which communities and actors source hostility, all pose significant challenges to law enforcement and intelligence. And so I guess you should talk about that one first because it's before the old one. The old one, I can actually pull up the PDF on the phone. But in this first one, in weaponized information, you can get on a PC. If you have a PC, it'll pull up. If you're doing it on a phone, at least for Android, like I've got an Android, it won't pull up. So they talk about bioweapon myths, and then they talk about the Asian conspiracy, which is like, I don't know, are there has anybody heard, other than like I've heard the MSM claiming I haven't heard them actually use the term bioweapon. I've heard the MSM say that like COVID-19 is attributed to China, and China, released it on purpose. That's fairly recent. Yeah, right. But I don't know. I feel like this is almost like a capture of the type of shit that I'm talking about, and then like redirecting into something impotent that's like not dangerous. Particularly like, and then they talk about Asian conspiracy. So that almost seems like it's like two different things, right? Like bioweapon myth and Asian conspiracy. And then when they talk about it, they say that there's like talk of bioweapons is a myth, obviously, and the Asian conspiracy would be like they're talking about like the increase in online activity and mention of like derogatory Asian names and shit. Like they use the example of chink is what they use. They said the prevalence of chink is increased in like forums and stuff. Like that's the example that they cite in their PDF, right? But it seems kind of like that's all I need. I need the three. You guys, I don't need you to defend me. It's fine. Everybody's gonna figure this stuff out eventually. It's all gonna come out in the wash. So, Kevin's disappointed. What are you disappointed by? I don't want Kevin's a regular here. Kevin, what are you disappointed about? Zipperhead. the so in the weaponized information outbreak. Yeah, I never understood that either. I never understood. I feel like the entire sensitivity of like what they consider to be like racist short names. I feel like that's an overblown. That's like an overblown synthesized thing, right? Like, because I don't care. Like, I don't care. Like, if somebody was calling me cracker or something, like, I don't. That doesn't bother me. You know what I mean? I basically hear it all the time anyway, like through the mainstream media. It doesn't really bother me. I don't know. Okay, yeah. Let's get back on track here. So they've almost got like this article that I'm talking about. We're referencing I'm trying to get it in focus. Fucking phone sucks. I'm referencing there we go. The weaponized information outbreak case study for COVID-19 and Asian conspiracy, bioweapon myth and Asian conspiracy meme. So they're claiming in this article, they're claiming that there's increase in Asian prejudice in forums online. They're claiming that there's a bioweapon myth attributed to the release of COVID-19, and they're claiming that it's kind of a dry article other than that. But what's interesting to me is that I don't view it the same way at all. Like, even what they're saying, right? Like, I feel like number one, the Wu-Tang flu is obviously engineered, right? Like, and that's one of the things that none of the MSM or these guys want to acknowledge at all, is that you're starting from a place of like something that's completely unnecessary to even be released. Like, it didn't exist naturally. It had to jump from canine to human. It's been fucking engineered. They don't want to talk about that. Like, why the fuck? And the other thing that they don't want to talk about is that all these the two labs that they say are possible origin points for the release of the virus in Wuhan province both had CDC employees, like international CDC employees in there. So you have to ask yourself then at that point, why the fuck are there international CDC employees in Wuhan province making motherfucking human like human versions of the coronavirus? You see what I'm saying? Like, they don't want to talk about it. I feel like that's a big linchpin. Like, I feel like if you could get they do like sometimes they'll do news interviews or like news talk shows where there's like people or like questions and shit, or for campaigns or like presidential campaigns or debates or something like that. I feel like that would be a great linchpin, would be to just bring up like, this is a human engineered virus. Why is the CDC assisting China in making human viruses that human beings are vulnerable to? Right? Now to contrast that article, the entire premise of what I've been saying about COVID-19 and China in specific is that COVID-19, because they're doing they're doing blood collection everywhere in the United States now, and they're really slow at it too, which is surprising. So the infection spike petered out, and then that's when they couldn't get the program is through the CDC, but they disseminate and delegate it down into the local level. So you have like local affiliates wherever you're at that are basically getting like money injections approved through Congress in order to do like mass blood samples they call it's called a seroprevalence serology test. And a serology test is like an actual blood sample that tests your antibodies in your blood to determine if they've had a reaction to like a viral exposure. They're not that accurate, and they're not really conclusive, and they don't detect COVID-19. They just detect antibody response alone. You know what I mean? So that's like the really fishy thing, and they don't want to talk about that, right? Like they want to. You'll see a lot of articles in the like. There's tons of articles in Washington Post, New York Times, New Yorker. I mean, all of your usual suspects have articles that basically say like, they basically like take a supposition of like the reader, like, why would I want to get a serology test? And then it's like, because everything's awesome. That's like they don't really give much of a good argument. They basically say that you should. We did that earlier. We went over one of those articles earlier in an earlier podcast, and it was absurd then, just as absurd then as it is now. Now the thing that differentiates that article that makes me curious is like you could pretty much take their three keywords here, which would be COVID-19, bioweapons, Asian conspiracy, right? And then you could it's like analogous to all the shit that I've talked about, but it's mirrored. It's like it's not the correct like attribution of motive, right? Of like who's doing what and what people are saying. You know what I mean? Now it's certainly true. It is certainly true that the fucking all the shit in the, like, if you're in 4chan or on comments or forums for like articles or like an image board or whatever, Reddit, you're gonna see a shitload of anti-China rhetoric, and it's gonna pump up like super hardcore. That's almost certainly, it's obviously government, right? It's like paid people that are typing this shit to pump it up, to synthesize animosity against China. It's only going to ramp up further. It's probably going to work out just fine because you still have a split in the United States, and most of the people in the United States are still not woken up. Like, they don't understand what's going on. They're just all fishy. Everybody's fishy, but nobody knows where the fucking largemouth bass is, right? So the bioweapon claim in here, to me, is like a red herring. Number one, the Wu-Tang flu is a bioweapon because they had to engineer it to make it jump to humans from canine, necessarily. Number two, the bioweapon, that's not the significant thing. Is that they're collecting fucking blood samples, which are DNA samples. Nobody knows where they're going in the United States. Nobody even gives a fuck. Like, there's nobody with any clout that is investigating this or trying to track it down or isolate where all these samples are going and even fucking figure it out. And I mean, like, beyond the CDC. Like, what is the CDC doing with the samples? Where's all this information going? Is it passing through intermediate hands before it gets to the CDC? Does CDC have like are they openly sharing it with a bunch of organizations? Like, all this shit is unknown, So the actual conspiracy of a bioweapon is related to all the information that you would find if you research the term ethnic bioweapon, which would be DNA-specific weapons. That would be like the most dangerous probability, would be that, because there is a reason that in the last 10 years, there's been like a massive effort worldwide to collect DNA samples from pretty much everybody on the planet. So if you didn't know this, it takes on a lot of different forms. You have like 23andMe, you've got like Ancestry.com, you've got, I saw there are articles that were discussing like basically unmarked vans going through NGOs, going to like neighborhoods in Philadelphia and shit and they just set up a blood collection table like in a city park, and they were just paying cash to people to get their DNA samples, and this would have been like the last like 4 years. And people were like really concerned about it when this was happening, that particular incident, but they're not concerned about the other stuff. 23andMe is the that's like a Wojak. So that's like the person like you're watching YouTube right now. The CEO of YouTube is her sister, right? So like this is like all the same people. You see what I'm saying? You get what I'm going? Yeah, yeah. The CEO of YouTube is the sister of the founder of 23andMe. No, I think honestly, this is my to make a long story short. I believe that they have embarked on a massive DNA collection program, globally in order to map the entire fucking map of human DNA. And I think the reason why is they're trying to like divide it into the most specific groups that they can in order to in the future create or manufacture bioweapons to attack people of specific DNA profiles. And my theory on this is that it's like if you go into like wargaming in your head, you got to think of world government, right? So like world government, like a hypothetical world government, they can't rule by force because it's net like world government necessarily is like a fucking top down model, right? And as you get lower down the power scale, there's more people, and at the very top it gets like teeny tiny. And you can't have like you have to have actionable actionable opportunity to keep all the lower tiers compliant. And like death isn't really, I mean like conventional fighting, like just using force isn't really a good model for it because people can just resist, you know what I mean? And especially like if the world were consolidated under world government, you can imagine what will go along with that in terms of like quality of life suffering and people being depressed and like unfulfilled, because it basically be like exactly like it is now but even less choices. And the and more oppression, the so you could, in that case, what would happen, obviously, is that a bunch of people would get together and they'd be fucking pissed off, right? They'd be pissed off. And then once they lost enough, like if you lost everything and you don't have anything to lose anymore, then it's like, it doesn't really matter if you die. So then it's like, that's like a recipe for a fucking rebellion, right? Like in the future, like for under a world government model. So it's a lot more effective to do like DNA specific weapons. So then you could just, you could literally just put out a message and just be like, okay, whoever, did this one rebellion, we identified this kind of leader. Like if one more happens, we're just going to release a fucking, or you don't even have to warn them. You just release a DNA weapon on a very specific DNA target, and then let everybody watch all that specific target like perish from the earth, and then not be able to reproduce anymore. You know what I mean? Whether it's like directly lethal or by sterilization, like where it's like they just have to live out their life and they can't reproduce and then they disappear. That's extremely effective for world government, because now what happens, you got to imagine the psychology of the people that are being ruled all over the world. They have to like think and consider like, wow, is it really worth it for me to fight if like I can't have children anymore and they're going to disappear off the earth? Or is it better for me to just, take what I can get so that I can live and so that my children can live? So it's almost a necessary, it's a necessary tool to use for world government, right? Like it's the only thing, it's like one of the only things that would actually make it work, right? Like because you, like if you have top-down compliance and top-down power dissemination, then it's like you have to have something that's psychologically powerful enough to keep people in check. And force just isn't there. Like conventional force can't do that job. It has to be fear. It has to be like the entire population has to know fear of something that they believe is, they have to make a calculation in their head that it's more worth it to go along than to, buck the system, right? Or to put up resistance, to have revolt, right? So anyway, that was a long description of explaining like what, you know. It was ironic to me that they used all the terms that we've been discussing in these streams, but just changing the meaning, right? Like it's kind of, I don't know. It could be completely coincidental. I wouldn't be surprised if the motherfuckers were in here watching. If you're in here watching, if you want to do an interview, I'll probably, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna send you an email, Network Contagion. I'm gonna send you an email requesting an interview. That's what I'm gonna do. Because I would like to talk to you and get to the bottom of this. Now, we got some other shit on here. They've got lots of articles on the Contagion Network website, but there is a PDF on here. Where is it? Blog? They've got a lot of articles into the blog. Most of these articles deal with like mass shooting. Like most of this is related around like the Pittsburgh shooting and the New Zealand shooting, and then they just roundabout connect it to whatever it is that they're talking about this current event. Which to me is kind of dishonest because it you know, it's like creating a false equivalent, right? Like if you're talking about like Boogaloo memes, and then you're just talking about like, you know, fucking Pittsburgh shooter. I mean, it's not really like the same thing, right? Okay, Contagion ideology reports. Oh, you can't actually get it if you go there. Darn it. So if you go to under the menu, if you go to Contagion ideology reports, you can actually pull up the PDF of what we were just talking about. How's it a troll level in here? We got a bunch of trolls or what? Are we getting trolled out, or is it good right now? Yeah, I know. There's a lot of Koresh references in there. Okay, this is the one that I wanted to show you. This is the NCRI White Paper Mimetic Warfare. White paper. This is going to be a PDF. You can find this on the NCRI website. So this is like the first place that I started to learn about these guys, and a lot of the stuff, like, I don't know if these guys are the ones that are informing the ATF, like, or, you know, being like the think tank that's like informing them, but it could be, because a lot of this is has a lot of crossover, like in the terminology and words. Let's get to the good part. So here's like an intro paragraph, and this will kind of give you like the flavor if you don't have the article up or their PDF white paper on mimetic warfare. This will kind of give you like a little intro to it. Even as law enforcement and intelligence begin to map how social media can rapidly radicalize individuals to commit acts of domestic terror, they remain challenged to understand how social media empowers entirely new groups to self-organize, radicalize militant cells, and incite violence. The ability of extremist groups to self-organize creates a new and poorly understood theater for emerging threats in the cyber domain. In this briefing, we document a recently formed apocalyptic militia ideology, which through the use of memes, coded inside jokes, conveyed by image or text. At least they got that part right. advocates extreme violence against law enforcement and government officials. Termed the Boogaloo, this ideology self-organizes across social media communities, boasts tens of thousands of users, exhibits complex division of labor, evolves well. This is like so fucking ridiculous. Evolves well-developed channels to innovate and distribute violent propaganda, deploys a complex communication network on extremist, mainstream, and dark web communities, and articulates a hybrid structure between lone wolf and cell-like organizations, like a virus, which awakens from dormancy. This meme has emerged with startling speed in merely the last 3 to 4 months. So if you didn't catch that, that's basically like, they're basically just describing like what's happening on the internet, and they're like putting scary words on it. The shit that they're saying here is like, I mean, like in that description where they're talking about the ability of extremist groups to self-organize creates new and poorly understood theater of emerging threats. Like, the reason it's poorly understood is because these are just a bunch of fucking people that don't know each other, that are fucking pissed off because of the bullshit that's going on in the United States. Like, that's exactly what's going on. Like, most of the people, I'm sure that, like, the people that are watching this don't even fucking know each other. Like, it's just, they're just like stumble on a video, and they're just like, wow, maybe this crazy guy in the car doesn't look like he's like fucking bullshitting me for no reason. And then they go on to talk about, you know, they tie the term Boogaloo into violence and propaganda against law enforcement and military. And then they talk about it like complex communication network of extremist, mainstream, and dark web communities. That sounds like a massive, I mean, are we talking about like another USSR here? Is that what we're talking? I mean, we have like a USSR tier threat that's built up here right underneath our noses. I mean, this could be a serious situation, guys. Or are we talking about the United States of America? Like, without you, the people that are writing this article, is that what we're really talking about? Like, you know what I mean? It's like you can't help but just like, you can just read between the lines, and then you realize this is the way, like in Soviet Russia, when they were getting NKVD to go around and like fucking execute, you know, like fathers and stuff, and like dump their fucking bodies in the holes to not to be known about or discovered for like 20 years. It's really easy to look at that historical reality and ask yourself, like, how could anybody want to even do that? You know what I mean? This is how that happens, right? Like, this is how you create lies, and you take a bunch of people that are isolated. Like, the people that are in DHS are fucking isolated. They're not like normal people. You know what I mean? The people that are in the like FBI are fucking isolated. You get what I'm saying? And they're not fucking tied in to the pulse of the United States. And so they're like getting a fucking constant diet of this kind of bullshit. And this is how they're going to get this is how they're going to get them to come and fucking murder U.S. citizens for trying to resist world government. You know what I mean? So, for trying to defend the fucking Constitution of the United States, like this, you know what I mean? Like, this is how you get people that have never read the Constitution but think that they represent it, to kill people that want to defend the United States. Then they have an entire section where they cite a bunch of like and they use like militia groups, like small militia groups. They cite the Whiskey Warrior case, Whiskey Warrior 556, you know, where there was like some kind of, I don't know what, he said that there was like a Boog, like the Boog was starting right then, and then a bunch of people showed up, and they discuss it like it's some kind of fucking you know, fucking sleeper cell in the United States. Like, they activated and they all showed up at one place. They had coordinated consolidation and created a cordon around the police. Like, there's a bunch of fucking kids getting in their fucking car and driving out because, you know, what the fuck else are they gonna do? Watch their country fall apart. And then we get into like, this is my favorite part, is where they like show. So they talk about some different groups and stuff. They could talk about the thick boog line TBL, and it's just got like a picture of like some dudes on a YouTube video like sitting in front of their gun wall. You know, I tried to look it up. I couldn't find the YouTube. So apparently, this article like created enough waves where they felt like they needed to take their shit down. And then you get down here, you know, this is like the best part. Is like they referenced Deterrent Dispensed, who had the Yankee Boogle up. So there's like come on. There it is. Yankee Boogle right there. And now I'm famous. Oh, I always wanted to be famous. Now I am. Woohoo. Okay. So, yep, they talk about this. They go into 3D printed guns. They go into, and explosive ingredients. They conflate 3D printed guns with terrorism. You know, I mean, this is like, I mean, now we should talk about who NCRI is, right? If they're gonna write all this stuff, we probably want to know who they are, right? Okay, so the contributor author for this article for Network Contagion Research Institute, NCRI, Cyber Swarming, Mimetic Warfare, and Viral Insurgency. The author, his name is Alex Goldenberg. The corresponding author is Joel Finkelstein on that one. And then we get up here into this first one, the first article that we talked about, weaponized information outbreak. So like this is, so you've got Zavas Zanetau is the author for NCRI, and he's out of the Max Planck Institute for Informatics. You got Jason Baumgartner, that's a NCRI guy. You got Joel Finkelstein again, and he's out of the James Madison Program in American Ideals and Institutions from Princeton. He's a Princeton boy. Then you got Alex Goldenberg, John Farmer. He's a contributing editor. He's a former New Jersey state attorney. He's a general and chief counsel for the 9/11 Commission. He's a contributing editor for this. Like, so you're starting to get like high level here. If you're on the 9/11 Commission, I would consider that high level. He's also the director of the Miller Center for Community Protection and Resilience at Rutgers, State University of New Jersey. John Donahue, he's NYPD Chief of Strategic Initiatives. He's retired. And then you got did they just put this guy's name on here twice? No. Okay, it's another Goldenberg. You got Paul Goldenberg, contributing editor, senior fellow at Rutgers University Miller Center, who is also a member of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security Advisory Council. So you have like the people that are giving the fucking white papers to Homeland Security, writing this shit. You know what I mean? So it's like you got to understand what's going on here. Like, so DHS is everywhere in the United States now, after post 9/11, and they're getting fucking white papers from these fucking ass clowns. And so like basically they're hopping them up and like getting them all fucking, hopped up on Mountain Dew to go and fucking shoot our dogs here. This is what's going on. Like, if you didn't know that, if you're not picking up what I'm putting down. Now, other things on this website that you should know is that they have an entire, like, if you go to their about section for Network Contagion Research Institute, they say it's a neutral and independent third party whose mission is to track, expose, and combat misinformation, deception, manipulation, and hate across social media channels. And they say they act as a public benefit corporation. They say it's a not-for-profit organization that seeks to explore safe ways to audit. Oh, they're not profit. Well, we're pulling up their fucking 990. I'll tell you that right now. They say they have, it says NCRI has no political agenda, nor profit motive, or university reporting obligations. The institute is well positioned to manage confidentiality and sensitive relationships. So they've kind of like, they're setting themselves up there to be like, fucking shoot into the DHS and shit like that. And then you got their staff. You got, Joel. This is like their standard stuff, I guess. Joel Finkelstein is the, director and the co-founder. Jeremy Blackburn is a co-founder and an advisor. Barry Bradlin, Bradlyn, co-founder from MIT. Zavas Zanato from Cypress University. And Michael Greenstone, technical advisor. Then you got some affiliations here. You've got the UN, the United Nations, you've got the ADL, and you've got Open Society Foundations and the Charles Koch Foundation. The Charles Koch Foundation. You know those guys that are like, they're just those bully Republicans. Those bully Republicans that just won't give us a fucking break, They won't give us a break. They just want they're racist. They're racist. And they don't like immigrants. And, the Koch brothers fund them, you know what I mean? Along with the fucking United Nations and the fucking ADL, who, according to the mainstream media, are the polar opposite. And the Open Society Foundation, which is one of George Soros's foundations. They give money to the what is it? Global Alliance. Global. What do they do? The AF Alliance for Global Justice. They give Open Society Foundation gives money, and Tides Foundation gives money to Alliance for Global Justice and other organizations like that, which are NGOs, nonprofits that fund Antifa. Okay? So, that is how unbiased the NCRI is, right? So if you're an NCRI or DHS that's getting fucking briefed by these fucking idiots, if you want to come on to Doug's Car Show, I'd be happy to interview you. You're probably too good for that, and I understand. You don't want to, you don't want to devolve your fucking ego to come on here, but I would have you here if you wanted to. If you wanted to talk. I don't think that you want to talk. I think you want to have a fucking war and fucking kill as many people in the United States as possible. That's the thing. But if you wanted to come here, I'd be happy to be proven wrong. Yeah, I would love to not have war either, but I don't really think that that's I don't think the American people want war. I think the American people are going to be tricked into war, and it's going to be this kind of shit. I mean, they're like this organization is setting it up. You know what I mean? Like they are tickling the ear of independent executive agencies. Like the DHS is fucking everywhere. You know that? They're in every fucking state. And in every major city they have an office, and they are getting briefed by these guys. Like, let's go to fucking DHS. If you go to the DHS's website, let's see what the fuck they're up to. So I'm gonna go to the DHS's website now. Department of Homeland Security, and we're gonna see if they have maybe the about. I mean, I'm sure they have all kinds of shit about Corona right now. About DHS. Now, you can, if you didn't know this, any of these executive independent agencies are technically required by law to list their entire staff. So they, and whoever did that, was smart because they didn't want to have a super fucking secret non-elected government. Like, at least they wanted them to at least publish their fucking names. Let's see. I know they put their papers in here. I found them before. We'll find them again. So I went to employee resources to see if they got any papers in here. Employee resources. Nope, this is all like healthcare. This is all like communist healthcare shit. Nope. Okay, not under there. Let's see. Not under there. Can you guys help me find a link here? I'm trying to find they should have like minutes for the DHS. Like the DHS, like whatever. They should have like minutes for their meetings of like what they discuss. If you can find a link for that, that'd be great. Is Abdullah in here? Yeah, seriously, if you're booging with fucking camis, like, you're fucked up, man. More like fucking reflective us would be better. No, Abdullah. Okay, hopefully he's all right. Yeah, PT belt. Put on a fucking PT belt for your boob. I mean, honestly, the booze is just probably going to be a bunch of fucking police cars because they're so sick of this shit, too. They'll probably just be like, come on in, boys. Come on in, boys. Let's raise and rope Bronco. Okay. Oh, here's a for you. Site links. Let's do that. Where's your site links? What you got? Notices, okay. Required by law. Let's see what they got. I'm just browsing DHS's website, trying to find. Not there. Man, they sure don't make it easy to. They sure don't make this fucking website easy to navigate when you're using two phones at one time. I guess I'll try their FOIA and see if they probably don't have. It probably just tells you how to submit FOIA. It probably doesn't say there. Yeah, that's a submission. Oh, they do have a FOIA library. Let's see if they got in the FOIA library. Minutes. Okay, this is like totally unorganized. This is like going back to fucking 2004. All right, well, I guess we're not gonna be able to navigate it right now because that would take this entire episode. But I guarantee you, because I know that I've actually seen them before. I've seen the fucking papers that they're doing minutes on that they're disseminating to the states. I think I was reading white papers for DHS in Missouri because I'm in Missouri. And I was reading that, and it's basically just like a bunch of bullet points of what everybody in the United States is getting. And for the past, 8 months, it's really shifted to domestic. So they're like focused on domestic, like what they consider domestic terrorism right now. Which is like you know what I mean? Which is pretty unbelievable, right? Isn't it weird, like, watching this shit? Like people that are paying attention have known that it was, had a vague a vague idea that it was going to get here at some point, but couldn't it's so like they try to keep it a secret so much that it makes you feel like you're like a crazy person, like you're just waiting all the time. You're fucking here, bro. Like it just hasn't kicked off. It's here. Like they're circling fucking wagons right now. They've been getting papers to look out for American citizens for like fucking 8 months. No, yeah, I mean you're not crazy. I mean you should know that you're not crazy when you have the standard of the Constitution and you look at it and then you see the obvious, the obvious practical issues with between what the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence says and what you see in real life every day. I mean that's enough to I mean that's like you couldn't have any clearer of a benchmark, right? Like whatever's going on, somebody may disagree about what's going on, but you can't sit there and say that the Constitution's being followed. You know. All right, so what else? What are you guys talking about here in the side chat here? If you don't take the vaccine, you won't be able to go shopping. Is that what they're saying? Is that like a deal that's going on now? Yeah, yeah. I saw that. I saw that article. So if you didn't know this, like last week, Missouri passed. Missouri, along with everyone else, like most other states, have passed anti-Semitism laws where it's like the BDS movement, which is probably fake. Like BDS is probably fucking fake as fuck. The BDS movement boycotting Israel, like boycotting Israeli goods and services. If you do that, then like the state won't do business with you. So they'll like counter boycott you, right? They won't employ you, shit like that. Paul Jr. says he got a sober DUI for refusing a blood test. Are you for real? Were you drinking? Did you drink a beer or anything? Mark Davis says that they were talking now. Mark, let me talk to Mark Davis here. Mark Davis says he's saying that they're basically issuing IDs to people who have COVID or the AB test, and you can't go out in public without it. Where did you see that or hear that? Did you see it or did you read about it or what? Like I'm just trying to track down exactly what's going on here. Yeah, I mean you don't have much time. Like basically, I would imagine. I would imagine. No, no, no. Who is this guy? OS10. Freemasonry equals Zionism. Freemasonry is not. I mean, Freemasons are Zionists sometimes, and sometimes they're not. And Freemasonry is like a subcaste of Judaism, like but universal. It's more like Noahide, really. It's Freemasonry is motherfucking like the reason that if you go to like the biggest Mason websites, they're gonna have fucking Solomon Temple on their website, like in the fucking banner. I assume logically that the reason for Freemasonry would be to have a parallel like non-governmental chain of information custody chain, or like yeah, pretty much passing information, passing people, passing supplies or whatever, if necessary, right? Like if necessary. So you can have a separate, you know, chain that isn't the government, and then you have like your government. Yeah, we don't use the term OS10 is new here. We don't use the term NWO. We say world government here. And they are gonna. I mean, eventually, yeah. There's gonna be a new temple. It's gonna be a third temple. Yeah, but here's the thing, right? If you say JWO, NWO, and you don't say world government, then it's like you're just giving ammunition to someone to like view your statement as a prejudice or as a conspiracy theory. If you say world government, then it's like it's so dry that like they have to think about it with a truth throat punch. Well, let's see. Throat punch. Like, where do we even go? And who's this guy talking about Alex Jones? We've definitely talked about Alex Jones multiple times in here. One of these episodes, I read Alex Jones's entire registered staff, like through his business document records, and they're all Jews, by the way. You didn't know that. Now, OS10, I do not like what you're writing because you are fucking misinforming people here. We can talk. We can address what you're talking about if you want. Is that what you want me to do? Scare One B Coke says, Doug, what about U.S. resuming nuclear testing? I'm not familiar with that. Is that something that happened this week? Well, I want to get to the next. I'm reading the comments right now. Think of this like an intermission. We are. Who the fuck is this guy? Did you just like wander in here? Ryan Rogers asked, "What's with all this Jew talk?" Why don't you watch the last stream prior to this, Ryan Rogers? That's what I would recommend. I recommend you back out of stream and go to the prior stream from earlier fucking today and watch that, and that'll answer your question. Well, okay, yeah, let's do this. Let's talk about this question. So, Boogie, who is a like a regular viewer here, is Boogie is asking, Doug, when do you think they will move on U.S. citizens? All right, we're getting cooking here. We're gonna cook up. So this is applicable to you, pretty much no matter who you are. So you don't even have to be like a boogie boarder to have this apply to you, right? When is this shit going hot? As I've discussed from like in a broad perspective, you've basically got an end goal of China involving the United States with China in a war, right? That has to happen in order to destroy the United States, right? The biggest thing that we need to work on as American citizens right now is making the general public aware of the purposeful intent to draw the United States into war with China. And you can show that by studying gold. Like you need to do a crawler search for the history of central banking gold moved into China. and this is an indicator of like creating the conditions for a war. The other part of it would be the MSM's antagonism between both American MSM towards China and Chinese media towards the United States. That's part of the setup. Getting everybody all pumped up, and then beyond that, now you have to look at. So that's like the end game, right? So like whatever, there's a lot of stuff that could go on here, but it's going to that, right? Like it's always going to go to that. It's going to go to the Chinese war. Now, the reason that you know that the Chinese war is absolutely 100% is because the amount of material and time and money that's been put into it is too big to fail. Like you can't, it's not going to get thrown away. It could like, I mean, the amount of fucking gold that's moved over there is like, way more than like World War II or something. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's you got to imagine like how much energy is contained in that. All that is for a purpose. So they're not going to like just fucking like forget about it. You know what I mean? Like it's going to fucking happen. Like even if you took dramatic action to try to avoid going to an existential war with China, like a politically existential war between the United States and China, you're still going to get there because it's just too much is invested in it, right? So that's the fucking backstop for anything that we would consider about, when are they moving on U.S. citizens, right? Right now the disposition is that you're starting to see things you're starting to see the fabric kind of pull apart in the United States and everybody get paranoid. And people everywhere are getting paranoid. Like, like I was in a municipality, like City Hall a few weeks ago, and they were like, middle-aged, professional women working there. That's like where they're at their whole lives. It's like small, some small town around here. And they were discussing in the office openly, like how scary it was. They were talking about COVID-19, but they weren't talking about fear of the virus. They were talking about how scared they were, like how creepy it was, how they got like these really fast orders to dictate shutdown. You know what I mean? And discussing like farmers getting letters to prepare for like euthanizing their livestock and shit like that. You know what I mean? So that's like what freaked them out. Now they are not like keyed up on the current events and shit like that. I mean, this is like a fucking backwoods area. These are like towns. The shit that I'm talking about are like towns of like 1,000 people in the parts of I live in Missouri, so like I'm going around to these towns and they're like these are people that are like basically like 10 years behind if you went to California or something like that. They're automatically behind. So if they're now they are honest enough to where they can say this stuff to each other and it's not like they're not like that far into the Stockholm syndrome yet. If they're talking about it, that means that the fucking shit is fucking everywhere. So like everybody in the United States right now is pretty afraid, but they don't know, they're not sure where to direct their fear properly. And so what's going on right now is this entire game is like the surveillance apparatus that is social media and comment forums and just like net traffic analysis is trying to like constantly gauge where everybody's at in the United States, like how freaked out they are, and then they're trying to like wrap that up with a narrative to direct it at fucking China. You know what I mean? That's like what's going on. If there isn't a, I also see as another parallel that would happen at the same time as this, this action that we just described. Another one is that you have you have organic resistance building in the United States naturally. And I'm not even talking about like violence resistance. I'm talking about like ideological resistance. I'm talking about people breaking conditioning and being like, I don't know what's going on, but fuck these motherfuckers. Like whoever these people are, fuck them, and I'm just doing my own thing. And you're seeing that everywhere. Like I'm also seeing that out here. I'm seeing that about the farmers and everybody. They don't really have a lot of options because most of them are, totally funded and like, money injection controlled, right? So they don't have a lot of as many options as they think right now. If things get really bad, I'm sure they'll just fucking burn it all and just like say, fuck it, I'm just doing my own thing. But for now, they're still making that gov money. subsidized farming. Like, so they're still on the tip, but they're all fucking suspicious. Now, if you start getting organic resistance building in the United States, I would expect pretty much no matter what. I would expect if there's a organic real resistance movement that builds or not, I would expect you to see false revolution in order to like suck up any kind of energy that will go into the organic one towards being a controlled revolution to fucking make it lose steam, you know what I mean? And to make people look at it and say, make the general public look at it and say like, wow, that's it. That was like all of our eggs we put in that basket, and then, you know, like obviously like the control revolution will just go exactly where the people that are doing it want it to go. And then that's not the same thing. That's not the same place as the population. So they're going to look at it and say, they're going to watch it fail, and they're going to go like, wow, that was like our best shot. You know, look at how bad we fucked it up. Like maybe there's no hope after all. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like what a revolution is for, is so that you stand back, like hands off, and don't do anything. And you just assume like somebody else has got it. You know, those guys have got it. We're good. Who's Carlos? Carlos needs to be kicked out. Where's he at? Let me find him. Carlos, where you at? Carlos. Apparently we gotta kick you out. You do something fucked up in here? You fucking... I can't even see the guy. Did somebody else kick him out? Carlos. How do I kick you out? Hello? There we go. Is he out yet? I can't fucking figure this out. I think he's out. Okay. So what oh, okay. I just deleted the message. Well, if he talks again, I'll try to get him. Alright. So you know, your time frame from what we're talking about there, it's got to be fucking soon. I mean, because you gotta fucking think that how do you get? I mean, how much further can this go? You know what I mean? Like on the present pace, like you can't. I mean, everybody can feel that it's like cracking apart, right? Like in one way or another. Whether it's like, you know, like something is gonna have to give. You know what I mean? The government is not going to play with chances. So you're gonna have. I would say that you're gonna have like false revolution or controlled revolution getting set up. I would say that's like, it seems likely. I mean, you don't know. It could just be China. But if you did get false revolution, you're still gonna get China, right? Like it would just be like buying time. Or, I mean, the China war would be really easy to kick off right now because they pretty much all they have to do to kick it off is just fucking hit a building with bomb a building in China. That's it. And then it's like boom. Now you're World War III. You know what I mean? Have the media cover it so like, you know, make sure that everybody knows about it. Bomb a building, and now you're fucking, you know, good to go. When we go to war with China, do you think U.S. allies will just stand back or jump in there? Well, it's going to expand into a global war, right? So like the war with China is not just going to be isolated to China and the United States. I mean, it's going to unfold into like everybody. Yeah. The Chinese war is going to pop off anyway. FEMA camps. So like FEMA camps, that could be used. I mean, it's tough to say, right? It's hard. It's hard to. I mean, they're definitely like DHS is the bigger issue, right? Like FEMA camps are subordinate to DHS. Like DHS is the biggest issue. That's like where you're gonna fucking have problems in the United States is DHS. I would guess that DHS is gonna be like NKVD, essentially, in like the mechanical role. I also think that you're gonna get huge funding of police departments for like transitioning their. I think they'll get started on the vine first, and then I think they'll create some kind of new organization or some kind of like some new organization that has direct tie-in with federal money, so they can just get paid, and then they can evoke that in any municipality. You know what I mean? Like that's where you're gonna get like your people like coming to pick you up at night and then you don't ever come home. No, they will draft for China. If the Chinese war starts, they will draft for sure, and they can fucking do it because nobody. You gotta understand. So this, I'm in response. I'm speaking to System 3. He says I don't think a draft would even fly nowadays. So that would seem that way. But what you have to understand is that like all the wars are like this. So like World War One, there was no interest in it whatsoever. There was extreme resistance to World War One, and they had to do a campaign for like 2 years to a fucking propaganda campaign in the United States to get the United States to participate in World War One. Like the only fucking reason that Wilson got elected was because he used the campaign slogan of like, he was like we're gonna like no U.S. war in World War One. Like while World War One was going on in Europe, he campaigned on like I'm gonna keep you out of the war and we won't go there. And that's how he fucking won. And then as soon as he won, obviously he was controlled, and so he didn't have any fucking choice anyway. So then he, entered us into World War One. But that's like like the entire United States elected him because he wasn't going to go into World War One. That's how unpopular World War One was. Same thing with World War Two. Nobody wanted to go to World War Two at all, and they were upset about being tricked into going to World War One. But then they forgot that too, and then you had Pearl Harbor. They had a huge propaganda campaign, doing polls all the time, trying to read the pulse of the American citizens. And they just watched. If you look up the Gallup polls for participation in World War II after it starts, you just see it like boop, 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 and then Pearl Harbor. You know what I mean? This is all the same shit. They're going to do it again for this. It's not going to be as hard, though. It's not even going to be that fucking hard because people are eating up the synthetic anti-Chinese propaganda. Like they think that's fucking real. Yeah, no, yeah, okay, here. This is a good, this is good. This is a username rep. He said, yep. He says, I think World War One and World War Two were pre-selected. I wouldn't doubt they'd get rid of as many fighting males as possible. This is accurate. So the way that you know this is like a couple different ways. Number one, you have to understand, like if we just take World War One, right? So World War One, the first example is the guy. We should actually look it up. So I'm looking up the naval mutiny of World War One, and we're gonna reference it so that you can look it up if you want. Naval mutiny. There are actually two of them with Germany. I've talked about this before, but we will go over it again, and I'll use this source material. So I'm just going off of Wikipedia. I've already seen this page before. This is correct. I've like looked up. This is like matches all the sources that I read about this originally, and this is like a good consolidated citing material here. So you got German High Seas Fleet, and they're going to attack the Royal Fleet, which is Britain, right? So Britain's like parked outside of Germany, and the war's over, and the German Navy is just going to hit them again for fun. And there were some moles inside of the Navy that didn't want that. So you get the initial order. October 1918, final order under Admiral Franz von Hipper dispatched his fleet against the Royal Navy in the English Channel. And then you get the initial mutiny, which would have been called the Wilhelmshaven Mutiny. And the guy who did this would have been... Oh, I got a vehicle coming. Interesting. Where is this guy? Karl Artelt. So Karl Artelt was a German revolutionary and leader of the sailors' revolt in Kiel. He was in the Communist Social Democratic Party of Germany, which was very temporary. And I'm trying to get up here to the... Yeah. So this Artelt guy who led the mutiny, he ends up in the 60s and 70s. He's like, I mean, he fucking serves in like the communist government of Germany in whatever capacity he can get until East Germany goes up. And he serves, he's a highly decorated lecturer for factories and schools. He's a chairman for the first district. He was the first district secretary of the People's Congress. So this is like all, like, you got to understand that, like, this is like the dudes that are doing the fucking mutiny, the guys that are doing the mutiny in World War I for Germany end up getting back in like the entire time, every single time there's communist control up until the end. So that's like, now that doesn't mean anything, but it means something like once you get the big picture. Like it's just like further confirmation, right? Other shit that you have to understand is that like Wilhelm I was getting assassination attempts in Eastern Europe like since the fucking 1800s. So like they were trying to fucking people around the world were trying some unknown group, like some unknown various groups that seem to not be connected, were fucking shooting at the fucking Kaiser before World War I, like in the 1800s, trying to fucking kill him. Wilhelm I had like 2 assassination attempts in a month from fucking communist groups, right? The people that shot at the people that actually like wounded Wilhelm were fucking, they were related to, like, in the organization that they belonged to was the same organization that had Karl Liebknecht. You get what I'm saying? And Karl Liebknecht was the guy who did, Rosa Luxemburg and him took over Germany during the Communist Revolution. You see what I'm saying? So what does that tell you? What that means is that the people that were trying to shoot the Kaiser's dad, the first Kaiser, the people that were trying to shoot him were in the same organization that fucking tried to steal Germany from the Germans during the fake ass communist revolution that failed. And then you had like all the people involved in the mutiny ended up getting into the East German government later, like after Germany got whacked in World War II. It's all the same thing. It's just a continuation. Where Germany is right now, like how Germany is right now, where it has no control and isn't a country anymore, that was the purpose of all of the shit. And then it was just like German resistance caused fucking World War II, basically. Like World War I was like pretty much planned. The Germans were, they got incentivized and pumped up by international media, very similarly to how we got pumped up to go into Iraq at first. And then once we got to Iraq, then they fucking dumped us. You know what I mean? And then it became like every every fucking politician and fucking like artist and shit like that, like they were for it at first. Not all of them. There's some people that didn't like it, but you know, there were shitload. Like the mainstream went with the flow, and then they fucking flipped after we got there. It's the same thing. They did the same. This is exactly what happened in Germany in World War One. And if you go into Library of Congress and you look at newspaper articles in European papers or American papers from like 1914, you're just gonna see a bunch of articles where they discuss like how impressive Germany's military is, and like how impressive their armaments are, and you know, like wow, they're just like breathtaking, you know. And it's just all fucking. It's just a bunch of fucking smoke that they're puffing up Germany's ego with to make it feel like the entire world is behind them. And then they got the fucking rug pulled out from under them. You know what I mean? And then they just like slowly got killed off at all their, you know, until they were fucking done. And so like World War One and World War Two are exactly a controlled, you know, that's a controlled mic drop, bro. You crazy bastards. All right, what else you got? What else you fucking got here? Mark Davis gave me a compliment here. He says I've learned more accurate world history from you in the last 3 days than of watching all your vids than the entire life of socialized public school. Yeah, it's pretty fucking bonkers, isn't it? Like, okay, you want a really good one? I can give you a really good story. So, you want a truck pop? Fuck, I don't have a suppressed gun here. I got like baby sleeping. I can't fucking rip this thing off. I've got a fucking Mark 18 in here. This thing would be so fucking loud if I shot this right now. This shit would be loud as fuck. And I don't even, I do have ear pro right here, but I can't do that. I'm sorry. So okay, so here's the story, right? Do you guys remember when we were talking about the bonus army? This is gonna be good shit. You guys will like this. This is like you remember if any of you have ever seen True Detective, and then there's that line in there where it's like, life is a perfect flat circle or whatever. Life is, you know, time is a flat circle. This is what it reminds me of, right? Whatever. Hey, Josh, if you want to send something to the PO box, I'm not asking for anything. So if you want to send something you think would be helpful, then I'll accept it and try to use it towards this purpose. Yep. Okay. The bonus army. So we are going to transition to the bonus army because I didn't hit this very hard. Like we talked about it several times. It was mostly like touch and go. Let me pull up some reference material here. This will be good. You will fucking like this. Like the bonus army story fucking really changed my perspective because of like, you know, it's a really weird thing when you start to escape the control paradigm in your mind. It's such a dance of like how you go back and forth. You go back and forth and you go like, you know, oh, is this really, you know, you know, and you look around at all the people, you look around at like the current system, and you get confused. You get confusion between the people that are America and the government. And when you hear the bonus army story, it makes you like, I mean, it's just so fucked up. There's just no way, like just the fact that it's covered up makes like the entire, I mean, it totally invalidates the entire notion of, you know, our reality, because it's such a terrible thing. And it's so terrible that like anybody in the government right now should like it should be referenced all the time in the United States history by people that are in the government that are patriots. And it's not fucking, nobody talks about it at all. I mean, people do, actual American patriots talk about it, you know, like academics and stuff that do like, you know, face history correctly. But like in terms of like, you know, you should have like your historic position, like your position on history should never be to censor history. Like that is like if you have somebody that's like either disproportionately blowing out something that is not significant, making it more significant than it actually was, or somebody trying to fucking erase history, like just pretend like some huge fucking important thing never happened. That's a sure fucking sign that you got the fucking banks up your ass. All right. Here we go. So the bonus army. Oh, I was totally wrong. I was thinking that was. Oh, okay. Yeah. So this is Wikipedia. This is saying 17K, but I've read like more accurate information than this from source material, and it was like just under 20K. So you had 20,000 World War I veterans with their families, and so it was more like it was closer to like 50,000 people. They went to Washington D.C. after World War I. So this would have been at like 1932. And they went to they all like caravan across the entire fucking United States to Washington D.C. and they fucking camped out on the White House lawn and along Pennsylvania Avenue, and they constructed like little shacks. They had delegated responsibilities because this was like a long scale protest. This wasn't like a fucking weekend warrior thing. This is like, we're going to go fucking live in front of the White House until they fucking make this shit right. And what happened was the Congress, like the United States government bought so much. When we transitioned into World War I, they had to put the Federal Reserve in order to fucking increase the money supply to match the output production for the amount of like weapons and material that were used for World War I. And so like we didn't have that before. So they had to like make the Federal Reserve and put it in and get it like cooking for a few years. Like they put that in 1913 and they had to get it cooking for a few years to get us into 1916. And they had to do a ton of fucking play with like Woodrow Wilson. Like Woodrow Wilson apparently got blackmailed with like an affair, like a very like not even, I mean, you shouldn't have affairs, but his was like, just like a pretty normal ass affair, you know what I mean? And this is all theory. This isn't like, there's not like a fucking VHS tape of Woodrow Wilson like banging out some broad in the there's nothing like that. It's just like judging from like journals and shit like that. Historians have deduced this. So like once the fucking Fed gets in place, and Wilson also like lamented after he was out of politics. Like he has writings where he like says that he really regrets like what came to pass. Just to be fair, right? But anyway, Federal Reserve to get World War I. World War I happens. It's a fucking disaster. We actually got off pretty light because we only had 140,000 KIA Americans, which is nothing compared to fucking like Germany, who got like, oh, I don't even know what Germany lost. Shitloads of fucking people. They couldn't pay the fucking vets, or the soldiers, the Marines and the soldiers, and so like they did a deferred payment. And then the media, like once they started protesting this shit, the mainstream media came out with the label bonus. And the reason that they used the word bonus is because they wanted the American public to think that they wanted something extra. Like they had already gotten paid and they were going to get like an extra. And that wasn't the case. What actually happened was that a part of the, like when they did this fucking deferred payment, when they were in like doing the draft, they basically said like, we're good for it. We're going to fucking pay you. It's going to be later. And they, obviously people are not like really focused on the, like thinking about the exact time they're going to get paid. They're just like, yeah, we're going to get paid later. But the actual, let's see, I'm trying to see if I can find the deferred payment. They're talking about the history of kind of an interesting history of deferred payments, like all the way through the Continental Army. Like the history of this, of basically like the government not being able to afford the fucking war. They were maturing. Let me make sure this is actually World War One. Yeah, Coolidge. So they had prior to this, it should be known that in like 1924, there was a bill that came up through Calvin Coolidge to fucking take care of this shit, and he fucking vetoed that shit. And he said a quote. This is like the most fucking trash quote ever. He says, "Patriotism bought and paid for is not patriotism," which is just like the most like. I mean, like these guys are fucking like fucked up from World War One. You know what I mean? Like this is not like, these guys aren't like sitting around on a fucking leather couch like smoking cigars. These are like fucking people that survived the fucking Great Depression and the Dust Bowl after World War. Like first they saw everybody get killed, and then they saw like their country change by the time they come back, and the fucking Spanish flu, which killed millions of people in the United States, started in fucking Kansas. If you didn't know that, killed millions of people. And then they fucking get back, and then their country's like changed. And I'm sure that they were watching all kinds of fucking, from their perspective, like ridiculous changes that they didn't understand. And they were all fucked up because they got exposed to fucking phosgene gas and CS gas and mustard gas, which like fucking eviscerates eyeballs and lungs. And they had a huge, if you didn't know this, in World War One, like phosgene gas exposure and fucking mustard gas exposure, it was like one of the most, like the reason that shit is illegal, it doesn't really have to do with like the suffering, it has to do with the economic loss. Because what happens is like when you get that kind of injury, it's different than like if you get shot in the leg or something, the worst that's gonna happen, you're either gonna like die from bleeding, or if you don't die from bleeding, then you're gonna have a wound that's gonna heal, or they're gonna fucking amputate it. You know what I mean? And that's it. And then you're just hobbling around. Phosgene gas is like you get that in your lungs or eyes, and now like if you go blind, that's the worst. Like they consider it in terms of like economic impact, like blindness is the worst thing that can happen to like a soldier in terms of like nation states are concerned. Like I'm not talking about a humanistic perspective, right? I'm just talking about like the cost to nations. So like if your soldiers get blinded because of whatever the technology is at the time, like, and it's kind of unique, right? Like we're looking at lasers in the future, it's like the big one that's coming up, but it also happened in World War I with gas. And the reason that they had to make it illegal is because when these guys were going back with like blindness, everybody had to fucking take care of them. So it's like, it's not just them, like they weren't born blind, right? Like they go blind after they're completely mature. Like these are all like young adults deploying, so you got like 18-year-olds that are fighting World War One. So they like already learned everything, and now they're just going blind. You know what I mean? And so it's like way more disruptive when that happens, especially like large portions of your society, because they have to be, and not to mention the other things, like if you've never seen like, what they call shell shock, which is, an extreme version of post-traumatic stress disorder, just from heavy shelling. It's a physiological reaction. Like I know, like, so there's different layers of PTSD, right? The way that they talk about PTSD nowadays, they talk about like psychologically, but it's actually a physiological connection, and it just manifests at its like shallow level in psychology, right? And that's where like you see the symptoms now. But like where I'm from, like I'm from Columbia, Missouri, and in Columbia they have like the Truman VA. So we had like, when I was a kid, we had tons of Vietnam vets, and you would watch the Vietnam vets, like, I mean, you would just see, I mean, a lot of them were homeless, you know what I mean? So they would like, and the reason that happens is because, basically if I gave you like a short answer, it's because the mind decouples from the body as a reaction to like catastrophic warfare. It's like and it just occurs in the population. It's like a nominal symptom that occurs in like mass warfare. You know what I mean? So it's not everybody, but it just depends on your phenotype, like your schizotype and your phenotype. But it is a natural thing that occurs, right? Because we're not really fucking meant to do this shit. And so like, you have homeless veterans in Colombia, a lot of Vietnam veterans, and there's like, there's this guy. I don't actually know if the Walker is a Vietnam vet, but you have lots of fucking vets that are homeless. Like it's a very common correlation. It's because they can't function, like they don't want to function in fucking society. Like they just want to drop out, but they're not like gonna kill themselves. You know what I mean? They're just not gonna like. They just can't take, they just fucking separate, you know what I mean, like mentally. The Now once you get into like a lot of like I was in a sapper task force in Ramadi, so we did a lot of like, like we like blow up mortars, like when mortars are coming in they wouldn't explode, we would like go fucking like control dead them, and we had lots of IDs, like they're, I don't know how many fucking IEDs I saw, but it was like quite a few, like live detonations, like unplanned, like driving around in a fucking vehicle, fucking turns into a little metal box, or like, tire poppers, or like fucking, shit like that, right? Mortars, like all that shit, RPGs, like lots of explosions. And then I'm in like engineering, so I do demo and shit. So like when I got out of service, like before I started having like the traditional PTSD symptoms that you hear about like in media and shit, or like people talking about it, like I had some of that shit, but that stuff doesn't really faze me, you know what I mean? Like most of the shit is just like heightened awareness, like fucking like, not being able to go anywhere without a rifle, which is really like, you should just be fucking doing that anyway. Like, you don't even need fucking PTSD to carry a rifle everywhere. You're just not a retard, basically. Unless you just fucking think that like, this is fucking Legoland and everything is awesome. But, like like when I got out, like towards the end, especially like when I was doing like TRADOC and shit, and like, doing like controlled deaths and TRADOCs, like training soldiers to work with explosives and stuff, you'd have like tons of repetitions of detonations. So like I used to have like a Pavlovian association with detonations where like I would start to get sick. So like I would get like stomach illness, like after, like it wouldn't really happen on like one det, but like if I had like 10 dets in a day, I would like get like ill, like physically ill. And I always thought, like, I didn't understand it when it was happening, because I always thought that it was like a side effect of like pressure waves, you know what I mean? Because we'd be like in close proximity to, some, like if you're doing breaching training and shit for like popping doors and shit, then you're like within like, fucking 3 feet of detonations, if you're doing like linear strip charges and shit. So like, like this is, but what is going on, what's actually going on in that case is that you've developed a physiological, like association, kind of like the Pavlov experiment, where like the dog, you like ring a bell every time they before you bring out food, and you set down the food bowl. And if you do that for long enough, what happens is you can ring the bell and no food comes out, and the dog will just start to salivate. Well, what was happening was that like, I was just getting exposed to enough fucking like live fucking, like detonations where they're trying to kill you. And then your mind automatically associates that to like things that make you feel ill, because it's like, it's not a pleasant experience. And then it just stays with you, you know what I mean? And so this is like, when we get into World War I, we're talking about like guys that are fucking like undergoing like continuous fucking, and mortars, if you've never been hit by mortars, it's one of the most like, it's fucking not, it's not like, I'll tell you about a mortar experience. So there was this, we were out by the white apartments in Ramadi, and we were out there with like I think it was like SEAL Team 2 or something, and they were pulling security, and then we were gonna like set up, like we went out there with nods, at night. This is part of a bigger mission. And in the daytime, we had these guys that would like shell us within like a 3-hour window every single fucking day, and like they would hit people. So like they hit one of the guys from like our sister squad, so it was like our task force, but it wasn't like my squad of dudes, it was like the other squad of dudes. And we were like inside of a little ass building, and then like it's, the mortars are so big, like when they hit, it's like your brain shuts off. So like everybody's standing there talking, like smoking cigarettes and shit, and all of a sudden it's like wham, and then you just like, your brain can't even tell what's happening. So like you just look at each other, and it's like a blank stare, and everybody just stands there for a second, and then like your mental faculties come back, and you're like, we just got hit with something, you know what I mean? But it takes like a minute, like, because it's just so high pressure, and it's fucking hitting directly on your building and shit. And then I went out, and fucking, there was a dude that like, luckily he didn't get hit by any frag, but he was like staying within like 1.5 foot of like a mortar impact, and so it like fucking like rocked his shit, so he's like unconscious on the ground, like not, totally out, all, he's on all of his gear, obviously, so we like fucking drag him in there. And then there was like, you see this a lot, like like whenever there's like a big high profile mission where it's like, you know, they're gonna like talk about it in the media or whatever, you get like colonels and generals that'll fucking come out to these places to just like spotlight. So they'll like bring a convoy and just fucking like show up and then like hang out for a couple hours or whatever and then like boogie out of there. And that was exactly what was happening right then. And there was like this colonel, or maybe it was a general, like maybe like a 1-star. And he was in there with his envoy. And these fucking mortars start hitting, and then we're just like dragging dudes inside and shit, and like ripping off their fucking clothes and shit, and like, you know, looking for their wounds and like, you know, fucking stuffing shit in their wounds. And these motherfuckers were so fucking scared that they like, you know, would like run out, you know, before the threat is even gone, and then like, you know, fucking leave in a convoy. You know what I mean? And their composure completely came apart. Anyway, I guess that's kind of a rant. This is a little rant, but the point is that, like, you know, it's fucking significant experience. Like when you experience it, fucking leaves a fucking impression on you, right? Like words don't really do it justice, but you know, I guess if shit goes bad in the United States, you'll probably fucking find out. So the dudes in World War One were fucking, like, there were more shells. Like there are pictures online of dudes in World War One standing in seas of fucking artillery shells. You know what I mean? Like they fired like empty casings, and it's like up to their fucking waist. You know what I mean? Like that's how ridiculous. Like for fucking a football field length. You know what I mean? There's like you can look it up. Just do like a fucking image search to see this shit. And that's like how like there's more shells than ever before. And these dudes would like that is the reason that you have such an intense physiological form, like strong in the physical realm of like brain decoupling. So like the bodies are just like shaking and shit. And that's what they call shell shock, if you didn't know that. So that was kind of like an explanation. We're talking about the bonus army, but I wanted to give you an idea of how, like, just how terrible of an experience these guys must have had, and like how short-sighted it is for the fucking country to like say fuck you. You know what I mean? Like it's just ridiculous, you know. And then they fucking tricked him into going to World War One in the fucking first place. You know, and they didn't even want to go. Nobody wanted to fucking go to World War One. They had fucking trick him into doing it. So if you go back, you know, so you got 40K vets in fucking DC, literally camping on the White House lawn and all up and down Pennsylvania Avenue. You've got a crew that's like close to 50,000 because these guys, like some of these guys, lost everything in the fucking Dust Bowl and shit. And, like, don't even have anything. So they just like took their entire family, like all of their dependents, and just like went down there. And they're just like, fuck it. I mean, it's fucking worth a shot. And they're just fucking living out here. And they like delegated all of their duties. They were doing fucking like DNC and shit. So they were like throwing up American flags on fucking staffs that they made, and fucking doing like organized fucking like parades and shit, like all day, every fucking day, this whole time this is going on. And it was so impressive that like Smedley Butler, the guy that was actually doing this shit was Walters. It would have been Sergeant Walters. He's like the organizer. So he's like a completely organic fucking organizer. You know, the Senate was trying to say that these were communists, you know, because by this time you already had the communist revolution took place. But in reality, like, the communist revolution was funded by the fucking people accusing the fucking vets of being communists. You know that they weren't communists because Sergeant Waters never fucking, he never did anything else after this. Like, he organized this somehow, and somehow fucking everybody's so pissed off they went along with it. And then after that, nothing. Like, no political career, no fucking, never did anything else. This is like his fucking magnum opus right here. That's not what fucking agents do. Like, if they're a subversive agent, they're just gonna fucking keep on showing up over and over and over again. So, like, this is like a legit, like, this is not communism. This is fucking pissed off vets. And so, you know, and they have good reason to be pissed off. And so what happens is you get President Hoover, who is a shithead that should have never fucking been the president. But anyway, they fucking fool us all the time. And so nobody has any idea of his background. But he was basically, so Hoover was basically he was like a laborer at a mine. And then he got picked up through the Rothschilds, through their firms, for fucking doing mining scams
outside the United States, and he like he was using like he used like firm IDs and shit for the people that he was associated with, which were like Rothschild Jews, like not Rothschild themselves, but like their bag boys. And he had to use their firm IDs and shit to like enter the markets because he was not living in the United States for so long, since like the 1800s, from going around doing these fucking international scams, that he didn't have any fucking like, he didn't have any fucking like registered clout like on a piece of paper, because everything was, you know what I mean? So he had to like piggyback off these guys. And then he fucking ripped people off. He ripped this guy off in China. He was ripping a lot of people off in like Australia and China and fucking like Papua New Guinea and like all this shit, like all over the fucking place, going around making a ruckus. And he ended up getting popped by the British magistrate for scamming like a Chinese company out of a bunch of money. And I've got that stuff, but this isn't the doc episode. So we're gonna do a document episode where we pull all this shit up. It's on his phone right now, so I'm not gonna do it right now. But you know, he got popped for it, and it's on record. You know what I mean? So he's just like scamming everybody. And then he got back, and you know, yada yada. He did a bunch of shit. He was U.S. Secretary of Commerce. He has a long history of fucking being a shithead. Okay, should never have been the president. And anyway, he gets into once he is the president. That's where we're talking about the bonus army. He orders the active army to deploy on Pennsylvania Avenue to suppress the veterans. And so the unit was I'm gonna actually see if I can find the actual fucking. So you had the commander was General MacArthur. The guy under him was General Perry Miles. They assembled immediately south of the White House, and then they called in the 3rd Cavalry. And the 3rd Cavalry was led by Patton. Like, you know what I'm saying? George fucking Patton. And then General MacArthur's aide was Lieutenant Eisenhower, like Dwight D. Eisenhower. So, like, these guys obviously at this point weren't to prominence yet. And the interesting thing, I was talking to Pacone about this. We were talking about this in a stream with Pacone the other day, and Pacone brought up, he reminded me of like there was a soldier that saved Patton, who was critically wounded in a tank battle in World War One. And his aide, his orderly, like saved him from fucking dying, like recovered his you know, immobilized body from a fucking getting hit in a tank battle, and then like got a valorous award for it. You know what I mean? And this guy was out there in the bonus army, and when he saw Patton in the 3rd Cav, he approached Patton and tried to like ask him to like stop, and Patton had him arrested. Like, this is how fucked up these people are. The you know, then and Eisenhower, like they had an investigation because of the fallout of this, because the public was like not very happy about this thing when it all got done. And Eisenhower wrote the Army Review report to endorse MacArthur's actions. So like Eisenhower fucking covered down for MacArthur when the heat came up, when the general public was like upset, because they couldn't really cover this up because they were rolling fucking tanks down Pennsylvania Avenue. They were shooting fucking tear gas at these motherfuckers. They burned all of their shit. So like they had like fucking houses everywhere, like little houses that they made, and they fucking burned. Like this is a picture. They just like fucking burned everything. You know what I mean? Like, everything got burned. They fucking sent them all packing. They had like active army out there with gas masks and bayonets and shit. The infantry unit was the 12th Infantry Regiment out of Fort Howard. 3rd Cavalry Regiment. They had 6 M1917 tanks. That was commanded by Patton was a major at this time. Commanded by Major George Patton. They went down Pennsylvania Avenue. When they first showed up, the bonus marchers thought that they were joining their parade. So they were like cheering for the fucking active army. And then they fucking started attacking them. That's like how fucking chaotic this shit is. Like how fucked up it is, right? Fucking Smelly Butler showed up, like, I think it was the day prior to this. Smelly Butler is like one of the most decorated Marines in Marine history. Or even compared to like Army, you know what I mean? He's like one of the most decorated military warriors in U.S. history. Like, very prominent World War I figure. And he came out of retirement to come and talk to these guys while they were doing the rally, and he told them that it was pure Americanism, and it was the most American thing that he'd ever seen. And he told them never give up. That's what he said. And there's like historical archive footage of him giving the speech if you look around for it. It's hard to find. Like they try to scrub it, but you can find it in archive footage. But he came out. He fucking rallied the troops. The fucking if you don't know about Smelly Butler, the reason, like if you're a Marine watching this, and I mean most Marines I think know about Smelly Butler. The reason that Camp Lejeune is called Camp Lejeune is because Smelly Butler got passed up as the commandant. The reason that he got passed up, and they get like Lejeune and Butler were like best, like they were like fucking bros, like they were like fucking like touching tips and shit. You know what I mean? Like they were fucking close. And fucking Lejeune got like picked secondary because Smelly Butler insulted Mussolini at a dinner party with a bunch of fucking dignitaries. And what happened was that Butler had an aide or like a subordinate that went to Italy with Mussolini, and then he was riding in a car with Mussolini, and he said that Mussolini like drove over a homeless child. Like they were driving down the streets and Mussolini was like showing him Italy and shit. And he said there was like a homeless child that was like in an alley, and that Mussolini like swerved his car and fucking like crushed the child and killed him. And so like Smelly Butler like knew about this, and then when they're having the meeting and all the fucking Marine Corps brass and shit was in there, like watching the shit, and fucking Butler like got up to the fucking podium and fucking like just fucking called out Mussolini, said like this guy like he just told the story. He just told the story exactly how he heard it, and then he fucking like dropped the mic and walked off. And that was like so then like obviously like they tried to court-martial him, it didn't work, and then so they just like asked him to retire from the Marine Corps, and then they like he was getting a commandant. So like Camp Lejeune is going to be called Camp Butler, but now it's Lejeune, and that's the reason why. If you didn't know that. So Butler came out there and gave this speech. MacArthur, Eisenhower, and Patton ran the fucking resistance against the bonus army, and that's the whole reason that like the statistical likelihood of you having a future president that's a lieutenant at this time, and then having like a 5-star general that's a general at this time, and then having like another fucking 5-star general at the same event that's a major at this time, the statistical likelihood of that occurring is like non-existent. So you can use your imagination there on what this means, but shit is not on the up and up, and these are the people that are involved in this, like Patton, MacArthur, and Eisenhower are the poster boys of World War II. Like they're the public face to sell the war to the American public. Like they're the American fucking personalities that like the American public saw, and they're the guys that are fucking like fucking up the fucking World War I vets. Okay, now this is the other part. We've kind of like touched on some of that. That was like a more detailed and thorough explanation of this shit. I also didn't mention that the DC police killed 2 privates and shot 2 privates during this whole thing, and the vets did not bring weapons purposefully. Like a lot of these veterans had fucking take-home machine guns and stuff that they took off the battlefield. Back then, you could just bring the shit home. So like these guys had fucking like Maxims and fucking fucking carabiners and shit. Like they had all this shit. They had pistols. They didn't bring any of that shit. Like when they did the bonus army, they were doing it as a peaceful march, and they fucking shot. They shot them right away. You know what I mean? It was like early on, and they didn't even leave when they shot them. They kept on going. The fucking like the crazy thing about all this is that, how do I put this? So like all the shit about like early world government is known, like League of Nations and all that shit, post World War One, was all known by Ezra Pound. And Ezra Pound is like an esoteric poet that was like one of the biggest fucking poet. Like he was like a fucking movie, like current like high class fucking movie star tier guy. Like nowadays, the equivalent back then. But like nowadays we're all dumb and we just fucking like read fucking, you know, subway napkins and shit. And that's about the extent of what we read. But back then, people actually gave a fuck about like words and poetry and shit. And so like poets were really big. They were like a big fucking deal. And Ezra Pound was a big fucking deal. Now, most of like in American history, we think of poets like Robert Frost and fucking T.S. Eliot and shit like that, right? Well, those guys are all fucking proteges of Ezra Pound. Like Ezra Pound trained them to be fucking poets. So like, you know, all your heavy hitter poets Ernest Hemingway was a protege of like a direct fucking like apprenticed Ezra Pound, and Ezra Pound was of the prior generation. Ezra Pound was of the World War One generation, and the reason that he was so aware of like the scheme of world government was because number one, like a bunch of poets got fucking drafted into World War One. He lived in Europe, right, when this is going on, when World War One's going on. Ezra Pound, I'm talking. He lived in Europe. A bunch of his poet buddies got fucking killed in World War One. Like they got drafted and they fucking didn't make it. And so like, and they were like big fucking poets. Like they had published works. They were fucking sending out poems from the front lines and shit. And they got fucking waxed. And Ezra Pound was like so disillusioned by it that it like completely changed his outlook. And then he started looking into things. And he was so famous that he would rub shoulders with like fucking financiers and shit for countries. So like he had like a fucking front row seat to seeing under the curtain. And so like this like pushed him off the edge, and then he just started like spilling the beans of shit. Later on, he actually got tied up into like fascism and shit. And so like he was like a proponent of fascism, particularly for like Italy, right? And a lot of this has to do with like his, you know, his getting like excommunicated from countries and shit for trying to blow the whistle on world government. Now, what's really fucking crazy about this shit is that like, you know, so Ezra Pound is like going off the rails. They actually locked him up in a mental facility for like years. And then he got like pulled out of the mental facility by Eustace Mullins. And if you never, like, you should look into Eustace Mullins, because Eustace Mullins talks about a ton of this stuff that we're talking about in his streams. Eustace Mullins was trying to blow the whistle on his shit pretty much his full fucking life. And he did a really good job. He's got a lot of, his shit is like very accurate. Some of it's kind of unbelievable, but like I've never read anything that I can think of off the top of my head from Eustace Mullins where I've been like I don't know. Like all is pretty accurate as far as I know. Like from what, you know, matching up with shit that I've read. The one of Ezra Pound's proteges is Ernest Hemingway. Ernest Hemingway was like he lived in Florida. So Ernest Hemingway has a house on the National Historic Registry in Florida. It's like a very old house. Like Florida, if you didn't know it, like the oldest town in the United States is St. Augustine. It's like a 1400s town from Spanish colonization. Florida's a very old state. It's like the oldest fucking state in the United States. Florida has one of Ernest Hemingway's houses. And when he was living there, what happened, the fallout of the bonus army, the government basically like after this shit, it was such a fucking public relations disaster when like the general public found out that the government was like fucking gassing vets and shit, like trying to protest to get their fucking deferred payments before they died. Like, cause that was the whole thing, right? They were all dying. Like they were dying from like their war-related ailments, and they couldn't wait fucking 20 years. Like that was what was going on from the 20s. They couldn't wait. So the government sent them all to like labor camps. So like the government was like, oh, you want your bonus and you're all in hardship, and like now people know about it because we like fucked you up and gassed you. So we're gonna do a dog and pony show. They made fucking like cheap labor camps in Florida. They sent like any of the vets that wanted to go that didn't have anywhere to go back to after this, because a lot of these guys are like homeless that went out to Pennsylvania Avenue. Like they lost their homes in the Dust Bowl and shit. They didn't have anything. So the government was like, we're gonna make camps right now in Florida, and then we'll train you down there. You take a train down there, and then you can work, and we'll just pay, we'll pay you like minimum wage, and then you make, shit for, construction projects and shit, So they sent like thousands of fucking veterans into Florida. It's mostly in like the Florida Keys. Then you have a fucking tornado rips through this bitch, and they don't fucking evacuate them. And they had a FEMA equivalent back then, and they knew that the fucking tornado was coming. But because the vets were like homeless and shit, they were just like, well, they don't have anywhere to go anyway. Like just fucking, drink water, which is exactly what they did, because they fucking died in face down in the fucking seawater. And 500 veterans from the bonus army got killed in the fucking in the hurricane of, it would have been in the 1930s in Florida. Let me look it up so I can cite the incident. Bear with me here. We're getting into important history. So this happened on Labor Day. This is on Labor Day in 1930. The Great Labor Day Hurricane of 1935. It was the most intense Atlantic hurricane to make landfall on record. 185 mile per hour winds at landfall. So in this, I've pulled articles, like newspaper articles from this time, like from the date, from Florida, and it killed over 500 veterans. Like more than 500 veterans got killed. And they were just like floating down there, and because it was like a labor camp that was like kind of away from the towns, they couldn't recover the bodies. So like there were some citizens that like put together a search and rescue crew to go recover all the veteran bodies, and fucking Ernest Hemingway went down there and volunteered, which is crazy, right? Because it's like a fucking circle. So like you got Ezra Pound, who knows about Hoover. Like Ezra Pound was a direct adversary of Hoover. Hoover is the reason that Ezra Pound got put into a mental institution. Like he ordered it, at like post-presidency, I think. Maybe it's pre-presidency, but yeah, probably pre. He got Ezra Pound into the fucking mental institution. Ezra Pound's protege is Ernest Hemingway, like the famous American poet. Ernest Hemingway was living in Florida when the fucking bonus army vets got killed by the hurricane, and then he did the fucking search and rescue crew to recover their bodies. And then that fucking informed Ernest Hemingway's like entire like morbid descent into insanity, where he, if you don't know this, like Ernest Hemingway committed suicide in Idaho. Like that's how he went out. So like this is like, it's all like a big fucking circle. It's all fucking connected. Anyway, that is the crazy fucking story of the bonus army. Now, most people in the United States have never heard that story. And there's a good fucking reason why. Because it's like so unbelievable. Like you can't help but it's obvious why that's suppressed, right? Like when you hear that story, it's like no fucking wonder nobody in the government wants to talk about that. They just want it to fucking go away. And if they do talk about it, they're just going to talk about it like a bonus, and they're not going to go into any of the fucking details, right? That is the fucking bonus army story. What happened here? So we're at like 18. Did we cut out? Because I'm at 18 minutes right now. Yeah, no problem. Yeah. For sure. It's important. It's like fucking important. It's fucking absolutely necessary American history. Like it's, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, how could you forget like an event like that? How could you, it blows your mind. It blows your fucking mind. But that's the way it is, because victors write fucking history books. And we'll pull up, like what I'll do is we'll have another stream here later I don't know if we'll do maybe this weekend if we can, or maybe we'll do it on Memorial Day, and then we'll pull up like documents and stuff and just look at documents. We'll pull up like I'll try to figure out how, like I got a ton of Library of Congress newspaper articles that are from all these events where it's like they just publish, they were publishing it, you know what I mean, real time. So that is a fucking bonus army fiasco. Now, eventually, like what we would do if we were expanding further is we would go into like Hoover's like affiliates and shit, because all of his affiliates are the people that did like the Marine invasion of Korea and shit like that, and the Chinese railroad system. Like we're talking like late 1800s, and getting like setting up the like what would become the Chinese-Japanese relationship for World War II, and setting up exactly like the position that we're in now, where we're facing China, is only possible because of communist China, like the communist civil war. And the communist civil war is only possible because of like the Boxer Rebellion and fucking like all of the international railroad shit that was going on, opium trade, from both the 1800s and prior to that. Yep, and it's still the same fucking thing. Like anybody that's fucking deployed to Afghanistan, I hear about it all the time, about all the poppy fields and shit. Like most of that shit, like the biggest producer of like opiate derivatives is Johnson and Johnson. You know what I mean? And speaking of heroin, if you didn't know this, do you guys know about? I mean, you guys know about the opiate epidemic that we're like now getting through the curve on? Are you guys familiar with that? Should we talk about that? So, do you guys remember there was an image that was like a very fucking powerful image that a police officer took of like an SUV with like a child sitting in the back with two dead parents in it that overdosed on fucking opiates. Hey, good for you, Mark. So, if you don't know this, we'll pull up two tabs here so I can reference them both. Yeah, opiates are a fucking big deal. And if you guys have, if you don't have an exposure to that, if you ever do, you should avoid them. You know what I mean? It is like life-changing stuff, and you don't want to fuck with that. I'm pulling up some reference material here, and we'll go into the last bit of this. Now we're going into opiates because of the relationship between like Afghanistan, which is like the war that we've been in since 2001. It's the longest war in U.S. history. The relationship between Afghanistan and opiate production, and we segued into that from talking about like post bonus army and the Chinese interventions, which involved opium. But this went all the way back. This shit went all the way back to fucking like East India Trading Company and shit. Like we're talking like pre-American colonies. It's like how old this shit is. So, in 2018, in the United States, 67,367 deaths were from opiate overdoses. Now, some of these are heroin, but a majority of these are like, we're talking like over-the-counter painkillers, okay? This is the chart. You basically had 3 waves. You basically had 3 waves that occurred. And these 3 waves are the yellow one is heroin. That's like the most like even keel spike. The high one is black. That's synthetic opioids. And then you've got commonly prescribed opioids, which is like it starts high and just kind of stays there, if you can see them. So that black one, that's your synthetics. The one that's on the bottom, that's your heroin. The one that's in the middle, that's your commonly prescribed opioids. Okay. From 1999, now this chart went from 1999 to 2018. So like a lot of those spikes that you're seeing, like you start to get commonly prescribed opioids start ramping up in about 2005. And then you get like a fucking crazy ass spike of synthetics in 2014. That's like the major spike for the United States. Between 1999 and 2018, nearly 500,000 American people died of opioid overdose. You get what I'm saying? Like, this is a fucking big deal. And I mean, I know that people probably have like a notion of it, but like 500,000 people is fucking, that's a lot of fucking people. Especially to die of something that's unnecessary. Yeah, and if you don't know, like, I'm sure that any LEs that are in here, they're gonna fucking know all about fucking like the fucking Narcan and shit that they have to fucking, or anybody that's in like a paramedic service or anything like that, you're gonna know all about like how you had to fucking change your entire fucking SOP to account for fucking opioid overdose because it was so fucking prevalent in every city. It was fucking everywhere. But what you might not know is that there's a long-standing lawsuit against Purdue Pharma. And this is a huge fucking lawsuit. It's for Purdue Pharma LP. And they were the ones that made OxyContin. And they introduced it in the United States. And basically what happened is that they got caught with like on their minutes talking about how they were going to purposefully flood the United States with opioids through fucking pharmaceuticals, which they are deriving from fucking Afghanistan, by the way. So Purdue Pharma is the Sackler family. Their chairman is Steve Miller. They're currently still, I think they're still in litigation over this shit. So they're basically just like paying off everybody that died, like their survivors, and saying like, here you go, here's some money, go away. It's just like a giant, it's evolved into a giant settlement. The original one was 24 states, so you had like fucking like DAs and shit, like filing like formal fucking suits. And they were led by Massachusetts, New York, and Connecticut. And the way that they got into settlement is because they had arguments over like how you could attribute responsibility for a public health crisis to like a single entity. But the entire reason they were able to do it is because the fucking minutes got like, somebody is probably sitting in Purdue Pharma, got a hold of fucking minutes and fucking leaked them. I'm gonna try to find the fucking actual minutes here. That's your fucking Sackler family. Right there. They moved to Europe after this. Like the Sackler family had to. Mortimer and Jacqueline Sackler. They moved to Switzerland. They moved to how do you pronounce that? GSTAAD, Stad, Switzerland. So if you didn't know this, like Rothschilds live in Switzerland. Cloisters. Like I know that fucking like Nathaniel Rothschild lives in Cloisters, Switzerland, among other places. He also lives in Los Angeles. I can't find the fucking minutes on here. Anyway, I've read them before. I can just reference them from memory. You can look it up. You can spend your time looking it up. Their minutes had like fucking sarcasm about like saying shit like it's going to be a very white winter indeed, and shit like that. Like it's just all this fucking like totally fucking conspicuous, like basically just like making jokes about how they're gonna fucking kill off a bunch of people in the United States. And they're talking, when they're saying white, it's like a double thing because they're talking about like white people. And that's how this fucking lawsuit got started, and why it was like they had such heavy hitters going up against them in the lawsuit, because the fucking minutes are so fucking damning that they couldn't really deny it. Yeah, if you unfortunately, I don't think Abdullah is here, but I'm sure he can follow up and put links in the fucking Discord. So anyway, that's kind of the stream. I think we're we're gonna wrap it up. Okay, kind of on a sour note there, but that this is like this has been a heavy stream, and we've addressed some heavy topics here, and done like a big roundabout. So I'm going to send an email to Network Contagion or Contagion Network or whatever the fuck they're called, NCRI. I'm going to send them an email and request them to have an interview, since they're fucking like informing the fucking DHS on who's the fucking terrorist in the United States and how it's Americans, including me, because I fucking released a Yankee Boogle. So I'm going to send them an email, and then I'm sure that they won't. I'd imagine they probably won't write back, but I'll follow up and let you know how that goes. I'm still fucking super fuzzy on Discord, but I'm gonna learn that shit this weekend, and I'll get tight on it, and then we'll get better transition into Discord, and Discord will be good because I'll be able to pull screen recording, but I'll be able to take like live calls too, so we can have like audience interaction between the people that are watching this and me. Big Titty Wendigo girlfriend says don't use Discord. Why not? Why would I not want to use Discord? It works fucking great. It's feds? Who gives a fuck? I'm a fucking fed. What do you care about feds? Yeah. You don't think there's any fucking... I guarantee, I promise you, we had like 200 in here in this live stream going live. I promise you that there are multiple fucking feds in here that aren't even here, like because they're being paid to. They're just here watching it because they're fucking interested in the shit that we're saying. Okay? And there's probably some that are assigned to fucking monitor too. I guarantee it. Both cases. I will, so normally we have Abdullah in here, he's like my mod, and he's way more high speed on Discord. I just found out about the motherfucking Discord, like, recently, so I don't even know, what it is, but, I'll unretard myself on that and follow up. and we'll like once I learn it and shit, then we'll start transitioning over to that. And then I'll repost here. Like I'll keep this channel up and I'll repost everything, like keep the video archive here, and then I'll split it. There's a gentleman that's very kindly mirroring all these videos onto BitChute, and so like I'll start dumping the videos from Discord onto here and onto BitChute so that they're, you know, covered down. All right, you guys have a great night, have fun, and I love you.